Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
The tranquil, soothing, natural sound of flowing water. Listening to it has been shown to lower your heart rate and blood pressure and generally relax your whole body. Combining the magical sound of cascading water with the beauty of plants, Hydria Life will now enable you to use those same health and well-being effects at home or in the garden. Get 10% off their rechargeable Hydria fountain at hydrialife.com. All you need to do is quote the code PLANT24 when ordering. You're too cute, Ellen.
What did I do?
Do you know, I was purposefully calling you Ellen Mary for like...
Stop chatting!
Am I not meant to chat?
Chat away.
Because someone told me like,
Stop chatting,
you can't call her Ellen. And I was like, okay, I must remember, it's Ellen Mary. But then Michael told me it was Mary Ellen. Like,
Oh my god!
What?
no. He told me that like, don't call you Mary Ellen, like, because apparently people do that.
We're going here already, aren't we?
Ben, I think
We're
you've just
going
given
here
us the
already.
best intro for the episode ever.
If Michael
Glad
is
to be of
annoyed
service.
with me, he calls me Helen. And also, often people say Mary Ellen, or even in articles they put Mary Ellen. I'm like, where does it say Mary Ellen?
Yeah.
Like, it says Ellen Mary, so it winds me up. So obviously this will become a thing.
I see. But even when I met you at Malvern last year, I think that was the first time we met, I was like, Ellen Mary.
It's not like I'm J-Lo.
No, I just didn't want to make a bad impression by calling you something you don't like.
Oh, you're so nice.
So cute. But Ben, will you stop chatting? We need to start the podcast.
Okay, zip.
It's such a chat.
If you don't know, it's Ben from Worcester Terrariums already, but I'm still also going to do the intro anyway.
Exactly. We're leaving all that in, you know, dude.
Because Ben went from postman to worldwide known terrarium expert. He's otherwise known as Worcester Terrariums, and he started his journey only a few years ago as a content creator. Now his content has had millions of views. He's worked with Marvel, Lad Bible, and some of the most well-known faces on social media, and we are privileged enough to be sitting here in Michael's apartment
Ding dong.
with Ben for today's podcast episode. Welcome to the podcast, Ben.
Thank you very much for having me. Lovely
Good
apartment.
to see you, dude. Thank you. He's disgusted that it's actually above a football stadium, and he's like, and I'm really indifferent to it, and he's like,
Not just the football, it's a Premier League club. This is very big.
You blinked her and you didn't actually realise it's a Premier
well,
League.
to be honest, when
club.
it's match day, it's more an annoyance than anything. And I can't see many legs from here anyway. I can only see a quarter of the, like less than a quarter, like 10%
It's
of the
a small
pitch,
pocket.
So, how's things?
Things
we
are
think you're brilliant.
Thank you.
He's back my
We're
walls
your,
right there.
we're your biggest cheerleaders.
We are.
Yeah, I think you guys are brilliant too. Yeah, things are really great. Full time for almost a year now,
Yeah?
and it's gone super fast.
So cool, man.
Living in
Honestly,
London,
yeah.
life's pretty good.
Uh-huh. Wow. Take us all the way back, though. Take us back to your first terrarium, but maybe even before that. Were you messing around with plants when you were a kid?
No,
Tell us how it all started.
My
then.
first memories of plants were in Singapore because my family are from Singapore. So I have memories of being at the Botanic Gardens and just, it's Singapore's. It's just, it's like if you're interested in plants, it's just an absolute paradise.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any exposure to horticulture after that until I was about 22.
Okay. Because that was trips, but you were growing up in the UK? Or?
Yeah, so I was growing up in the UK. We'd go to Singapore maybe every 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
So I was 22, and it was actually, I'd gone through a difficult period in my life, and I was really fortunate to land a job working in a primary school. I was working one-to-one with a 3-year-old child.
Wow.
We formed a really close bond, and it was the next 4 years were really great for me. But I kind of view that as that was a real turning point. Now, we were put in charge of the class composting system. Reception and nursery kids eat a lot of fruit, so they compost it, and I became really obsessed with the composting process. And there's an allotment right next door to the school I was working at, and I put my name down, and within a week I was the owner of a 1/16 of an acre plot of land.
Wow.
I had no idea what I was doing. I'd bought allotment books and gardening books from charity shops, and
Ellen hadn't written her book then.
No,
there was no good guide out there.
I have a tendency to become really obsessed with things, and this was something I became really obsessed with. And over the next 5 years, I was trying to grow things you couldn't buy in shops.
Cool.
But also seeking out as many horticultural hobbies as possible, and terrarium building was the one that really stuck with me. It's over 10 years ago now, which sounds pretty crazy to say.
That's amazing. What a story, though, how it all began. At the time, was it 2020-ish when you were working as a postman and you decided to pop terrariums around Worcester for people to find?
Yeah.
So where did that idea come from?
So there's a creator in America called Isaac Holzapfel, and he was hiding terrariums in his city, and I thought it was a great idea. And this was actually a few years in to the Worcester Terrariums journey. I totally stole his idea. Gave him credit in all the news articles and stuff. I just thought it was a really nice thing to do. And
really cool.
Hiding terrariums around Worcester was, you can leave cute notes on them. In the winter, I was putting little knitted jumpers on the terrariums.
That's so sweet.
I think we should do more of that. When I released my book, I hid the book around.
Yeah.
You should do that.
Yeah.
I hid them around different houseplant shops and stuff.
I was thinking actually about because I've got loads of cute little Tic Tac boxes from when we went on holiday, and I was making terrariums in them, and I thought about leaving them around London. And,
That's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
So how did Worcester Terrarium start? Because when we met the other week, you were talking about your first Instagram post.
Oh yeah.
And was that your first terrarium?
No, so my first terrariums didn't do so well. I think at that point in time, I would often say, there was no information about them, but I've since been told the information was there. You just had to be in some niche reptile forums to get it.
Oh, really?
And I wasn't, a lot of the guides online were quite generic, written by people who perhaps had never made a terrarium. My first few goes didn't turn out so well. But then I also had a big interest in bonsai, and in bonsai they place the utmost importance on soil. And actually a lot of the skills I learned in bonsai are transferable with terrarium building, and I was using bonsai soil in terrariums. I think going back to your original question, it all started I've actually forgotten your original question. What was your
Me
original
too.
question?
I'm just mesmerised.
What was your first terrarium, but also what was your first Instagram post?
How did it lead to your first Instagram post? We get there.
So my first
You are a chatterbox.
I am, you have to tell me to stop. My first Instagram post is that terrible lab flask I was telling you about, taken in the corner.
I didn't look it up yet, but we can shame you at a later date.
It's like it's a lab flask in the corner of my mother's living room. and it's just a terrible photo.
I bet we're all embarrassed about our first Instagram.
Yeah.
Mine are so overexposed.
How do we
honestly.
find them? There must be a website.
You
You just have to scroll right to the bottom.
Oh my god, my finger's not that
this is
agile.
this is a then and this is a now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
To show how far you've come, like how much you've progressed. That would be awesome.
I think the terrarium wasn't that bad, but the photo is bad. And I think when you work in social media, taking good photos, just knowing how to use a camera and to use lighting is
But Instagram was not as slick then, was it?
No,
it was. First of all, it was
it.
almost a platform where you went into there to alter your picture to then put it on Facebook,
right,
wasn't
yeah.
it? Like put that funny little edge around it
That's
and things
right.
like
Yeah,
that.
that's what mine was in the beginning.
And even so, this was mid 2019, and even then, Instagram was a photo sharing platform. So videos, I don't remember videos being on there at that time.
No.
Whereas now,
Do you remember? Sorry to butt in, but every time something new came to Instagram, there was always uproar, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I don't want to see video. Oh my gosh! And then reels come along. I don't want to see reels. Oh my gosh! Stories. What are they? They're rubbish.
but actually, it's
funny.
just where the attention's at, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
totally.
I know you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you should get used to it.
There's
yeah.
uproar with the new Threads thing. It's people on Threads complaining about Threads.
So did it really kick off when you started having the ability to put videos on?
Yeah,
Instagram?
absolutely. Yeah, I think it was around. I've been doing it a long time now, but I think around early 22 when things really took an upwards trend.
Only 22, so not in pandemic year then.
No, so pandemic
But you
year
must have
was
seen a lot of growth at that point as well.
Yeah, it was, and I think I was posting photos and building a community online. Reaching 10,000 followers and 50,000 followers. But I think it really accelerated when I started making videos because that's what they were pushing.
So cool.
Yeah.
And were you always did you enjoy making videos before, or did you go, oh no, they want videos, so let's go with videos? Do you know what I mean? Was it something you were interested in already?
Well, I was making YouTube videos.
Right.
So I had a vague understanding of using a camera. I still don't fully know how to use a camera. But yeah, I think I actually really enjoy the video making process now. But at the time, I think, I was trying to get to as many people as possible. So it was more of a necessity because I think you need to roll with the changes, right? I don't want to be someone who's just going to complain and be like, I want it to be like the old days where it's just photos.
Things change.
Yeah, you should roll with it.
Yeah. So then it obviously grew, and then at some point you then made the transition from postman to full-time content creator.
Yeah.
How was that? Did it take a long time to get to that decision?
Oh yeah, it took a long time, and there were a few moments where I thought I was going to leave, and then something happened, and I wasn't able to. I must say I enjoyed being a postman, and now I'm down 25,000 steps a day and up 8 kilos, so it has its perks. But I think I knew I wanted to leave. I didn't want to be a postman for the rest of my life, and I didn't succeed academically. So I really viewed this, especially after the initial sort of upwards trend, I really, just something in me knew, I really felt something like this could be something. Lots of people were telling me otherwise, but something I just knew inside something could happen with this, and I'm just keen to take it as far as it can go.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we can see that for sure. And before we talk about terrariums specifically, I think because we mentioned in the introduction some of the amazing organisations you've already worked with, like Marvel and Lad Bible and others. Tell us about some of them and some of the biggest ones and how they came about and what you've done.
So I think I've not done that many brand deals, and I quite like it that way because it means my feed is quite authentically me rather than full of ads.
True, yeah.
And it's important, as a creator, you need to take paid work. So my first real big job was with Kraken Rum.
What?
With Kraken Rum.
Kraken Rum?
Yeah.
I never heard that.
Have you not seen the cool rum bottle with the little handles outside? You don't drink rum?
I'm not as cool as I thought I was.
Maple syrup even, they have the little ones. They're kind of like that, but rum.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just, in one of the miniature bottles, I made a terrarium, and they'd seen it, and then they paid me to do another one. So that was a really fun brand deal. But then I suppose the first big one I did was with Disney and Marvel, and that was for the latest Ant-Man movie, which is actually a year ago now.
Yeah.
I know.
It doesn't feel a year ago.
It doesn't. So they contacted my agent, and I think my agent sent me the brief through on like Christmas Eve.
Right.
And I was like, I was still working as a postman at the time, and I was really stoked that I could potentially make a video with Disney. And yeah, we just made a terrarium which depicted the quantum world. I've never really watched the Ant-Man movies.
You must, I love it. It's a great movie.
I like Paul Rudd.
Yeah, he's ace.
But Paul Rudd to me is always Phoebe's boyfriend from Friends.
True.
Yeah.
But he can be Phoebe's boyfriend from Friends and Ant-Man.
Absolutely. But yeah, so we made that video. It was great, and you know, it's just nice to say, you know, I was able to work with Disney and Marvel.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And then recently I did a video for Paramount for The Castaways with Sheridan Smith in. Great series, by the way.
Yeah.
Like
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, they actually gave me early access to watch it. So my girlfriend and I watched it from Boxing Day. No, it was before Christmas. And we watched all 6 episodes like back to back, and we rarely do that. So it was actually genuinely a good series.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, the premise of the series is that it's a plane crash on a beach.
I can't handle this.
Oh really? Oh sorry, you're going
Flying tomorrow. I've just flown, so I'm all right.
I hate flying as it is.
Look,
well, it's
I'll
a
give you
small
those
charter
sleeping
plane.
tablets, darling. It'll be all right.
So I won't know the plane goes down.
So yeah.
Not that likely, is it? Honestly.
Oh, it's high.
Oh my god! Please stop.
So I'll skip that bit. So it was on a Fijian island, and it was, you know, full of palm trees and this blue water. And I immediately knew what I wanted to do. So there's this amazing plant called Biophytum sensitivum, which looks like a mini palm tree. And I just wanted to plant this, what essentially is a fish tank, plant the back with the palm trees, add the white sand, and then rather than use real water, used epoxy resin to simulate the water.
Cool.
That's cool.
So yeah, that was essentially my job for Paramount, which was nice.
Cool, isn't
And
it?
it's so creative as well. Like you really have to think about how to depict what their story is. You know.
Yeah, and I was a bit worried to start with because I was thinking, you know, I've never really worked with water that much. You know, depicting an island from a movie. They're actually going to see the video before I put it out, and you know they might ask me to change things. So I was nervous about that. I also got COVID during the whole filming process. So that video, where you see me making it, I actually have COVID when I'm doing that. But my girlfriend helped me film, so that made life easier.
Cool.
Very cool.
You mentioned there having an agent. I think that's a really nice bit of advice maybe we could give listeners. Like, at what point did you pick up an agent? Did you approach them, or did they approach you? Kind of, and obviously you see the benefits in having an agent as well.
Yeah, I think so. Gosh, I mean, it was a while ago now. I'm wondering. So I actually was creating a book proposal, and I was put in touch with them through my other friend's agent. We had a meeting, discussed what I wanted to do, and it was just a really good fit. And they've been wonderful because I think transitioning from being a postman to a full-time content creator on your own is actually a very difficult thing. It's like they're like wildly different worlds. So having an agent, they're like some of my friends, you know, but they also like handle my business for me and just make sure I'm not getting ripped off, because I think it's easy to be taken advantage of in this world sometimes.
They got your back.
Yeah, definitely. Really good news. About terrariums then, there's been such an increase in interest in them, which just seems to keep going up and up, which is amazing. Like, where do you see that going?
My hope, and I'm quietly confident about this, is that it's going to have a similar trajectory to, say, the aquascaping world. even if it was half of that, it would still be massive.
But I think comparing that to aquascaping, terrariums are easier than aquascaping, aren't they?
It's a very easy access point. So, I mean, you could make a terrarium for £2 or £3, or you could make one for tens of thousands of pounds, and there's all the space in between that. So I think it has a very easy access point for people, which is, I think it's a wonderful thing, especially children.
Yeah, exactly. They can have a little go with it as well, can't they? And it's fun.
Can I just ask, you're mostly doing closed terrariums, right? Do you do much with like open, kind of like obviously like cacti, shallow terrariums, or are they not really classically a terrarium?
I mean, I'm not sure what the dictionary definition is, but for me, a terrarium should keep the humidity inside. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be totally closed. So if it has a small opening, it's still considered a terrarium. And actually, airflow is beneficial to plants. So you'll often see in a lot of higher end terrariums, they have air holes in them so that it creates an airflow, because you want the balance between airflow and humidity. Having said that, it's fun to experiment with fully closed terrariums.
Not the cactus in.
No.
Oh my god, you must cringe if you were like, because like there's obviously lots of terrariums around now. You might see one in a hotel lobby or something and be like, what the hell have you put that in there?
Yeah, I was in a.
Can I replant it for you?
I've learned to just keep quiet.
Yeah. You'll get drawn in.
Yeah, I popped into a coffee shop the other day in central London, and there was a cacti in a closed terrarium.
Oh, right.
I mean, sometimes they last a while, but it's just not like. It's not good practice.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh.
I have this thing that if I was to win the lottery, I want to have like a glass wall, glass walls that partition the rooms, but in the glass walls is a terrarium.
Oh, that's
that makes
such a
sense.
cool idea.
So like the partition to each room is like a double layer glass, and inside is a terrarium for every room. That's how I would literally.
That's so cool, Melon.
If I was like a multi-millionaire.
Yeah. Not to the bathroom.
The glass is not that expensive.
Not to the bathroom.
It's like some people have a fish tank dividing the room.
But imagine the amount of plants. I think it would be an extremely costly affair.
It's interesting though, because that's the other thing I think is great about terrarium building, is that you have a peperomia over there, and you don't have to plant the whole thing. You can just take cuttings from it.
True.
But you are right. Filling your walls with plants would be a costly affair.
Actually, have you done much with wall-mounted terrariums?
No, but I have a fun project coming up. So, I mean, I can talk about it. Is that there's
well, it's up to you,
there's
if you want to.
There's a business in London called Ants HQ. Cesar, a guy called Cesar owns it, and I just really loved his enthusiasm around his passion and his business. And we collaborated in the past where we made an ant farm and a terrarium in one, and we're going to create something together that's going to go on the wall.
Cool,
so,
very nice.
I think it'll be out sort of mid-March.
Awesome.
The only reason I mentioned, because big name drop, I was in Amazon Spheres the other day, and they had these on the walls. Yeah, like kind of like almost. But what do they call them? What's a vivarium?
A vivarium is a terrarium that has an animal inside of it.
Oh no, it wasn't vivarium. It was something else. Some of it arium. I can't remember now.
We're going to talk about having other life
I think
in
that'd
your
be brilliant,
terrariums in a bit, for sure. But can you just give us some advice for someone who's just starting out? You know, what do you do? How do you get going? Because this might all sound really complicated to some people. Like, what plants would I put in? What medium do I use? How does it work?
I think, as we said earlier, you need to use the right plant. So I'd steer clear from cacti and succulents. In terms of growing medium, you have to use a terrarium soil if you want it to survive for a long time. And generally speaking, they're grittier, but also composed of materials that are water retentive. So it has that sort of like water retentive yet well draining property. I would advise, maybe upcycling some old jars or something, or perhaps buying some fish bowls from a florist.
This might seem like a silly question, but does it always have to be a glass jar?
Could be acrylic or plastic, as long as it's clear and allows light through. You have to be super careful with watering, because unlike a plant pot, the water has nowhere to run off to. So if you overwater, I mean, it's one of the leading causes of terrarium death. It becomes stagnant and anaerobic, and it starts to smell. so you have to be very careful with watering.
You just use like a spritzer
Yeah,
kind of thing?
yeah. I've got like a pressurised spray bottle, which makes life easy. I also try to not use tap water. London tap water is very hard. I've actually started, because my workspace is in the attic, I leave a big box outside to collect rainwater, and that's perfect.
But is it also, like with my houseplants, I like to use slightly warm water as well.
Yeah, I mean,
because sometimes you can really give them
it's a shock,
a big cold shock, especially this time of year.
When I took the rainwater in from outside, it was like ice cold. I mean, I don't use warm water, but it's just like room temperature water.
But is it possible that you could like maybe not even water it? Because there's some terrariums that have been closed for hundreds of years, right? And you started a project with that recently, didn't you?
So I think perhaps not hundreds of years, but many years. I think the oldest known or the most well-known one is about 64 years old, but it was opened once in that time to be watered. There's a friend called Adam who has this, he calls it the Infinity Terrarium. So it's a lab flask with a Boston fern inside of it, and it's just filled the lab flask, and it's not been opened in 6 years. It's
probably the only way to keep a Boston fern happy. Put a maidenhair fern in there as well. Keep that happy.
I can't keep maidenhair.
I hate them both.
No, I mean, I actually think they need a lot more light than people realise, and also they don't tolerate drying out very well.
I think they need you to talk to them, stroke them, play music to them.
My grandma used to have lovely ones with no problem at all.
I suspect they probably didn't dry out and got a lot of light.
Where overwatering is a good thing. I bet your place is full of terrariums,
It is, yeah. there's no getting away from it. What I like about that, though, is if you go on holiday, you don't have to worry about somebody watering your plants.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have house plants, but yeah, predominantly it's a terrarium household.
But what about, before we move on to potentially having creatures inside your terrariums, what about some of your favourite plants, or maybe some of the more rare plants? I was really in love with this last week at this flower show. They had lots of the begonia.
Oh, yeah.
Pinnatifida.
Oh, I'm not too sure. I'm not so great.
You know the one with the feather leaf? No, because we saw it when we were at Kew the other week, I'm sure.
Foliosa minima.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that. But it's just this fern leaf begonia that is so sexy, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you got some favourites? Or?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Peperomia genus.
Okay.
There are some amazing plants within that. There's something called Peperomia antoniana, which has got these tiny circular leaves. They almost look metallic with these small white specks on them.
Oh, wow.
I love ferns. So Perosia ferns, there's one called Perosia numularifolia, so that's a bit of a mouthful, so a creeping button fern is a common name. It's an epiphytic fern, grows perfectly well terrestrially, and it's just beautiful and tiny with these lime green leaves. I mean, how long have you got? I could sit here for a long time. I'll name one more. I think probably a moss. I really like using vesicularia moss. So that's actually an aquatic type of moss. It just has this beautiful lime green just shine to it, and it works perfectly well growing in the humidity of a terrarium.
Do you have to buy plants specifically for terrarium making, or can you take some cuttings from your house plants and pop them in?
Well, I mean, so we have a rubber plant here. You couldn't put that in, say, a small terrarium, but you can take cuttings from certain house plants, provided the terrarium is of the correct size.
Yes, they're almost a rule of thumb. Like the bigger the terrarium, obviously, the bigger leaf things you're going to have for the look. Really.
Well, I actually think. I mean, if you can fill a big terrarium with lots of small-leaved plants, it looks really good. But then on the flip side, you can. There's more space to fit bigger leaved plants in there.
But maybe if you've got small leaf plants, that's where you can maybe add in other things like pathways and stuff.
Yeah.
I love the moss when you get steps in a tree. That's really cool.
I quite like, actually, so I visited a friend and he has these big vintage desiccator jars, which he just has a single nepenthes growing in there. And I really like that.
That's quite cool.
That's really
like one plant for one terrarium, and then you get mosses growing and other things peeking through.
Do you ever, sorry we're getting stuck on plants for a little bit, do you ever grow orchids in terrariums?
Yeah, so
like some of the miniature ones, would they work?
Yeah, there's one called Specklinia dressleri. I don't have too many orchids, but this one has the most minute leaves. Mine's yet to flower, but I think I remember reading that actually the flower in comparison to the leaf size is very big. There are lots of orchids that will work in a terrarium, but I think it's important to note that you wouldn't just stick it in and hope for the best. You'd need to do a bit of research. A lot of orchids are epiphytic and won't grow well in the substrate, you need to mount it, and they need a degree of airflow as well, or else they could just fail.
Okay. Ben, I want to talk about frogs with you.
I knew this was coming.
Because I know that you don't like some frogs, but you like other frogs.
Are you frog snob?
No, no snobbishness. But you tell us the story.
So I'm actually highly phobic of frogs.
Really?
Yeah.
You had an I Love Frogs t-shirt on in the gym.
I did.
I was like, did something change?
Alessandro bought me that. We went for dinner the other day and he was like, I've got you something, and it said, "Man, I love frogs" on his t-shirt. So it's funny because I think it started when I was I don't remember this, but my sister says I always wanted a pet frog when I was young, but then all of a sudden there was this change in my behaviour, and apparently there was an antagonist in a cartoon that was a frog. Anyway, I remember walking to school one time, and I think it was my first year of high school, and I saw a frog, and it just scared the life out of me. And I remember running, and it became a bit of a theme that, I'd see a frog and my heart would just drop. So I'm actually phobic of frogs, which was a problem when you're a gardener in a very damp woodland garden. But I've kind of realised it's the larger bulbous frogs you find in the UK.
Toads.
I mean, I have less beef with the toads.
Okay.
Because they're not, I think it's, when you could be mowing the lawn or doing some gardening and then a frog just seems to jump out of nowhere. I think that really unsettles me. To the point where if I see a frog, I actually won't sleep very well.
Really?
It's that bad.
I need to give you hypnosis. I
Yeah,
think we can totally sort that.
I did go through, so before I went to India in 2016, I did have some hypnotherapy, which did actually help, but I never continued afterwards.
Yeah,
I had hypnotherapy for public speaking.
Really?
Yeah.
I had it for flying, or I'd never be getting on a flight to America.
Interesting.
It genuinely can help.
Yeah.
But anyway, you do put frogs into your terrariums, don't you?
Yeah, so I the tropical frogs I really like. So I have some glass frogs and then some dart frogs too, and they're very tiny. They're just very beautiful creatures. The glass frogs look like Kermit, and yeah, they're lovely animals. And it's funny because in my old workspace they were downstairs, and I didn't hear them calling. But we've now moved them upstairs in our new place next to our room, and at night you can hear them chirping because they're nocturnal animals. But they're lovely. They're very lovely creatures.
So living things along with plants can be in terrariums. Like you have woodlice. And
your videos on that are cool.
Yeah.
There's always the one where you do this dramatic cut of a piece of carrot, drop it in, and then it all happens. It all kicks off.
Those videos tend to do very well for me. So I think it's really important to note when you do make a bioactive terrarium, so when it contains the isopods and millipedes and other custodians, you have to tailor it to them. So it's not just a matter of putting the bugs, they're not actually bugs, but the isopods into the terrarium and hoping that they do well. They need airflow, they need leaf litter, they need rotting wood to feed on, and then they also need a calcium source. This all sounds like quite a lot, but it's actually very simple. But you need to make sure you have those things, or they won't survive in there. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
But I think they're super interesting, and it's so. I discovered there's a whole isopod community where some isopods sell for like £50 per isopod.
So what is an isopod? It's like a centipede, millipede.
It's like a woodlouse, so if you imagine... But I mean, there are lots of different types of isopods. I mean, I'm not entirely sure, what the definition is. But
don't look at me, I should know the answer.
Something that would make Ellen scream,
I realise I should really know the answer.
I mean, I should know the answer.
What was the other word you used? Custodian?
Custodian, yeah. So
someone that looked after a school.
Yeah. So I like to refer collectively as the... because that's what they do. They look after the terrarium. because they feed on decaying matter, go to the toilet, aerate the soil to some degree, and fertilise the plants. And sometimes eat your plants too, but that's
It's like us, we're custodians of gardens.
Yeah.
They're not ours, they're like custodians.
Yeah.
Sorry, we nearly come to the end, but we've still got a couple of questions I want to ask you. Did you tell us how many terrariums you got at home? Because I'm just imagining, like, you sat at home surrounded by glass and all of these little pots and things everywhere.
Pretty much.
Have you ever counted?
A while back, but in the London move, I lost a few. So I think I've got around 50 or something like that.
How does your girlfriend feel about that? She's just used to it now.
She's actually really supportive.
I guess you don't have to water them that much, do you? So it's quite low maintenance.
Although I am going to Worcester Wednesday to Friday, and she has to feed my crested gecko, and she said to me last night, Ben, it's quite a lot to have to do this. I mean, if you and it's not like you have to feed it live food. They live off like a powdered food.
Oh, it's not a lot then.
No.
With it.
if it's like her first time having to do it, have that responsibility, it might feel like a lot. I might have done it a couple of times.
True.
Yeah.
But you've got some big news coming up because you've got your book. It's already on pre-release, isn't it? And it looks amazing. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, I think a lot of that is down to Jason Ingram, the photographer, just taking amazing photos.
It's hard to take pictures of glass, isn't it?
It is very difficult to take pictures of glass. I'm really pleased to say it's coming out on May 2nd. And it's kind of the book I wish I had when I first started making terrariums.
Okay.
You know, I'm not a botanist, I'm not actually horticulturally trained, but through the years of experience and making hundreds, if not thousands of terrariums, I kind of wanted to condense that information into a book that people would find useful. So it's coming out with DK, which I'm really pleased about. And they were amazing to work with. Like, such a pleasure.
And what date is it out, you said?
May 2nd.
Okay,
What was it called? Did you say what was it?
Hello Tiny World.
Hello Tiny
So
World.
cool.
It's funny because when I walked into my agent's office, they said, Farhad has a name for your book, and he was like, no I don't, like he didn't want to say. And I was like, Farhad, come on, you're going to have to tell me. And he said it, and I was like, that's the name. That's the name.
And it's always the first name is kind of always the one, just spontaneous. There you go, boom.
So
That's really cool.
So cool.
Yeah, but it was a long road. Like, I submitted a proposal in 2022, which didn't make it, and then I think after a successful 22, revised the proposal.
A lot of stuff is about timing.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah.
But going back, I really wanted to leave my job as a postman, and I kind of saw this as a way out. Not a way out, but how I could transition from postman to content creator.
That's brilliant.
But you're right, timing's everything.
Aside from the whole terrariums, like they're inspirational, but you're inspirational. What you've done with your career.
Thank you. Yeah,
and I think listeners will really gain a lot from that as well. The career advice as well as the terrarium advice in this episode. Yeah. For sure.
Now, I'm totally sure that our listeners will have all already seen you and watched your videos, but just in case they haven't, where can our listeners find you online?
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. I make videos on all those platforms, and the handle is Worcester Terrariums.
Yeah, you've given Worcester a lot of promo.
I love Worcester. It's my hometown.
You might become like an honorary. What do they give when you've done something?
You get the freedom of the town. You can take sheep over the bridge and everything.
The key to the town.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Who else is from Worcester? Happy place.
Sam, Happy Place Gardener. She's from Worcester. She's lovely.
Yeah.
We've had her on, haven't we? Well, she came on the Horty Hangout, wasn't she? She's super nice.
Cool.
Worcester's the place to be, really.
Yeah, thank you.
Worcester's great, and I'm looking forward to going back on Wednesday, seeing all my friends.
Cool.
Very nice.
Swag around the town.
Yeah.
I'm a big content creator now. I know you're exactly the opposite to that. I can see that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ben. It's really great to have you on the
Super
podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Well, should we do everything again?
Recording in progress.
I just cycled for you, Ellen.
Did you pedal really fast and really hard?
I did. All over the bumps on my lovely rickety Lime bike. You never know when you jump on a Lime bike, you never know what condition they're going to be in. Sometimes, for anyone listening, they're kind of like rental bikes. They're not like the Boris ones. They're kind of like electric, so they're a little bit assisted. but they're okay. But I guess like if they need maintenance every so often, and I've had many pedals that have just flung off in the street.
Really?
I'm just like, well, if you don't maintain your bikes, that pedal's just staying there. I'm carrying on. Look, pocket coffee. But yeah, so that was nice.
You look very slightly flushed.
I've just had a colonic.
Really?
Oh, literally.
Good choice of description. So you really genuinely have just had a colonic?
Yeah.
Do you find, like, I've never had one before. Do you think they really
that
do
might have been
help?
up your boulevard.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know about that.
I'm pulling all the jokes out, and Ellen gets them.
Everything we're saying is like
you
completely
always get the joke like 20 seconds after it's like out there. Oh dear. Norfolk thing.
Okay, what have you got on for the rest of the day then?
I'm meeting a friend for dinner later, so I'm actually going to go to bed for a bit.
Honestly, if you are, I am not surprised. You have genuinely been so busy, and I know I always say it to you and you sort of tell me off, but you have done a lot over the last month or so, you know?
I know. I think the extra component that makes it harder is when you have jet lag.
Yeah.
It's cool to be busy when you're on your own time and kind of when you're organising yourself, but throw jet lag in the mix and you're just kind of like, now. Oh my God. But I feel like, and I feel like I had a low-level illness, like some sort of I don't know, lady flu or something like that. But I feel recovered. Well, I have to say lady flu because I want to stress that it wasn't man flu, which is treated as a very throwaway illness in today's society and not taken seriously. So I wanted it to be lady flu.
Because you want it to be taken seriously.
Exactly.
So, there was some research released recently to say that
here we go.
they think man flu is actually real.
Yeah?
Yeah, because men and women do feel things differently. Yeah, and that the cold might be the same for female and male. Males genuinely feel it worse, and because of how their pain receptors are and whatever. So there you go. So man flu is perhaps real. But where have you been? Tell us where you've been.
When? Well, this week or after? Before?
Huh? Before, you've got jet lag. Where have you been? And you've been doing a ton of stuff.
Of course, because we last spoke when I was in US, wasn't it? And I'd only I think it was only the first day or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I've been at the Northwest Flower Show. So, ironically, I was in US when you weren't.
That's typical, isn't it?
So that was pretty cool. And then I was there for about a week. And I built a garden, like a kind of garden installation thing. With a moss rug and some other cool little featurettes.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the show. I was involved in different seminars. We did Container Wars with Kim Stoddart, the editor at Amateur Gardening. With Joe Thompson, the designer, we had a British tea party one afternoon, which was pretty cute as well.
Yeah.
And different Weird and Wacky Plant Show and this and that. And I got a visit to the Spheres, which I still haven't written up. Honestly, Ellen, the reason I always stay so calm on a day-to-day basis is I kind of line up lists of work I'll do at certain points. And so I'm good at forgetting that work in the moment. And then suddenly, because my day to do work is on Sunday. And then on Sunday, I'll open up that list and I'll be like, oh my God. So writing up the Spheres visit is on that. But that was it was a real honor. But this, jet lag is just, because that way round, I kept waking up at 2 a.m. And it's but I'm very much jet lag or not, I like to trust my body. And I'm kind of if my body's had enough sleep, then it probably knows what it's doing. But I don't think it knew what it was doing, to be honest. I don't know if it was
that is the definition of jet lag, basically.
But the thing is, Ellen, I would have this, maybe you can relate to this bit where I would go to sleep at 11 p.m. and I'd wake up randomly at 12:30 and I would feel as if I had slept 9 hours, but it was only an hour and a half. And I don't understand that bit of it.
Because your brain assumes it has slept that many hours and then it takes a while to catch up.
if you just nap for an hour, it wouldn't assume. I don't know. It was just such a different feeling. I don't know.
But if you nap for an hour, that's within your normal day, yeah? Like your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, because it was at the...
Yeah. So it would your brain would immediately be like, oh, I've slept because it's time to wake up now because this is the time I wake up every single day. And then it isn't until a few hours later that it goes, oh, I'm really tired now. Do you know what I mean? Like until you get out. You're sort of retraining your brain, aren't you, when you go into a different time?
No, totally. It was so queer, honestly. Yeah.
It is, yeah. When I go forward a bit, it knocks me out like for days because you go one way. And I might only be there for 2 weeks and you've just got over all the jet lag and in a rhythm and you go back again and you're like, oh.
And also it's at that point where like, it kind of gets so hard to avoid, but it's at that point where you're bound to get a little bit sick because kind of like, I don't know, it just kind of lets it in a bit, doesn't it? And I feel that's so hard to overcome. Do you know what I mean? Because
I guess they say that when you're tired, your immunity is down.
Yeah,
but
you really are.
I sometimes find that when you feel really tired, you feel like you're sick, but you're probably not. You're just really tired. I mean, you probably have a virus. You're probably just really, really tired. Or it's just that, you've caught something and your immune system's down. I don't know. I'm no scientist.
I don't know, but I feel like it's unavoidable in those points because you are kind of like your body's all over the place. It's just how it is at that point. So
yeah. But then you came back. You had like a day because I saw you. We recorded podcast.
Oh my God, that morning I felt like I was in a dream world because I got off the plane and I'd slept on a sleeping tab, but of course that's kind of like, collapsing sleep. That's not really sleep. But God, I forgot about that. And that is this Sunday's episode.
Yeah, and then the next day you went off to Milan.
I know. Which was very nice, I have to say. What did we do? What was I doing? I was speaking at the event. That's what I was doing. And I like to have jet lag. Look around and stuff. So, and like then seeing people, but it's hard with those things because you've still got to be switched on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And so kind of like, I still had to be alert and stuff and kind of like being friendly, stuff like that. And I think I don't know, like I had this like lady flu, which I was kind of battling at the same time, and like a low-level fever, I would call it, Ellen Mary.
Oh dear.
But not plain.
Germs on plane.
You did ask.
Yeah, I did. You're right. I totally did. Let's talk about something else.
But since I came back, I knew it was going to be a quieter week. Although, no, you'll probably tell me off for this, but I did have like a mega midnight QVC shift the day after Milan, and I was like, flip a duck. I think I'm not adding enough buffer zone, but I already knew February was going to be a big one. And I think when you've got something that is transatlantic or trans-Pacific or whatever, and with the jet lag, that is a different thing to consider, if you know what I mean. So, yeah.
I think jet lag is underrated for sure. Like, usually when I get back to the UK, I find it harder coming back to the UK than I do going to the US. I find it harder going east than I do going west. Yeah. So when I get back, everyone's like, "Oh, come over, let's do this, let's do that," and I'm like, "I can't. I feel too tired." I at least have a buffer day or two where I don't really hang out with anyone.
Yeah, true. And that day we recorded, I'm like, not sure if I'm really in the room or not mentally.
Well, no one would have known. You've done a great job.
But regardless, it was nice to see you.
Oh, cute. That's cute.
What's going on, Melon? I'm really a bit aggrieved about your HOA. Is that the right phrase?
Yeah, HOA.
Shizzle McWizzle.
Don't start me off already. So for anyone,
tell us the story in case people don't know.
So for anyone listening, our house in the US has a very small front garden. You could barely even call it a garden.
You couldn't swing a cat there if you wanted to. But I don't recommend swinging cats, right?
I don't recommend swinging cats.
But
you're right. You couldn't swing a cat in the front garden. It's very small, but in some areas of the community and in the US in general, In fact, in more areas than not generally, especially when you're in urban environments. They have something called the Homeowners Association, which is a group of people that make sure that the community is kept clean and tidy, and, you know, they generally say to keep the area beautiful, which I find ridiculous, considering they have told me to move my flower pots and perennials out of my front garden. So what they want to see is very sterile concrete.
That's what they think is beautiful.
Yeah, like a border which is mulched with pine needles, and then some like utility shrubs. I think there was a holly out there, and there were some other crappy shrubs. And then everybody's front garden looks exactly the same, like that very Stepford Wives sterile environment. And of course, the first thing I did when I got here was pulled out those shrubs. I potted them, and then I put in some perennials, and it's a really shady patch. So I thought really hard about it. I ordered some stuff from nurseries online all over the US that was specific to that deep shade. So I have some beautiful like hostas and heuchera, toad lily, have some ferns. Of course, we moved in October, so they're all pretty much sleeping. There's still a little bit of foliage, but it's all on the down low. And then the next thing we know, we got a letter from the HOA having come along and taken photographs of our border saying we need to remove it all.
Wow.
And also I've got two really beautiful big containers either side of the front door, and each one has got a native tree in that I got from Trees Charlotte, which is like a community organisation that give away free native trees so that you can have them in your garden. So I was literally furious, and the letter that I got was on the day I landed back here, so add that mix of jet lag and tiredness and all of that. I was so emotional about it. And I've actually had to leave it to my husband to talk to me about, because I feel overly emotional about it. Because it's not just my garden. It's the fact that if people think...
It's the whole environmental opinion.
Yeah. If you think beauty is concrete and a couple of completely useless shrubs, and everyone's garden being exactly the same, then we're in trouble, aren't we? You know, so it's like a bigger thing than just my stuff.
So you'll appeal and kind of go bigger with it?
Totally. I've not removed anything. I'm not going to remove anything. We're obviously going to have a chat with them about it first and then appeal it and go from there, But I was reading a ton of stuff, and there's a bit of a movement in the US at the moment, a bit of a backlash against HOAs, because in the past, I don't think a lot of people had appreciated the importance of gardens, you know, and, you know, having wild garden and different plants and blah, blah, blah. But now people are recognising that, but the HOA haven't caught up. They're still like, no, you must remove this, you must remove this. So there's a bit of a backlash going on really across the US, and there's been some really interesting claims that have gone on. I think I might have this wrong. I'm going to say Baltimore, but I might have this totally wrong. But a lady had lived in her house for like decades. She'd done beautiful like wildflower meadow in her front garden. It was all curated especially native, HOA said, no, it's got to all go. And she fought it so hard that she actually changed the state rules. Really? So the whole of that state...
Like Erin Brockovich.
Yeah, a bit. Yeah.
Ellen Brockovich.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
But Ellen, because you're like unique and you're obviously in a nature gardener from the UK, etc., I think you should get some PR rolling on this. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think? I mean, like, it's just the 100%. Tiniest. It's like the tiniest little patch of land. Do you know what I mean?
Like,
it's
a really mini. I think you should roll for PR, darling.
Yeah.
Don't be shy.
No, I know I'm absolutely not, but it's just, I was emotional when I first got it. And then to rub salt in the wound, 2 or 3 days later, they sent another letter, just repeating the same thing again. And I was like, it says they have to be removed by the 12th of March. And then they just repeated exactly the same letter. So I opened it up and there it was again. I'm like, why are you doing this to me?
What's their heads be out? That's just crazy. Do you get any opportunity to talk to any of your neighbours about it, or...
So actually,
I wonder how they've think.
Yeah.
Right?
There is someone around the corner, and when we very first moved in, we noticed that they'd made their front garden look really nice. Like they've made a little pathway through it, and then they've put all plants and shrubs and like little pots with flowers in. So they're obviously wanting to do the same thing. And so I knocked on their door the other day, and they weren't there. I actually think they travel a fair bit, but when they're back, I'm going to have the conversation with them to see if they got a letter too, or if they had to put in some like request for them to be able to do that. I don't know. It might be as simple as that we had to ask, you know, if we could do that. But quite frankly, even that drives me wild. Why should I ask someone what to plant in my own garden? So that's the HOA for you.
Well, keep fighting it, Ellen Brockovich.
Oh yeah, I'm fighting it. I am fighting it. Ellen Mary Brockovich. Those plants are not being removed. You should see the hellebores at the moment. They look so like there's so many flowers. They're literally thriving all outside our front door. And on the HOA rules, it's like we want to keep our community beautiful. You cannot tell me that does not look beautiful. What does beautiful mean?
No, they're not really. They want to keep a control of beauty.
Yeah, which is insane. As you can imagine, that does not make me. That is so against everything I believe in life in general. Being controlled and not having freedom is like the worst thing. So Helen. That's not enjoyable. But I'm going to definitely be pushing for.
Oh, hopefully they picked the wrong battle here.
Yeah, they have picked the wrong battle.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the HOA for you. Anyone listening from the US probably understands it entirely and is currently, jumping for joy that, someone is hopefully banging the drum for dealing with that. So, yeah.
The duck. Oh, my God.
Yeah. In other news, good news, I have just announced that I'm going to be hosting at BBC Gardeners World Spring Fair and BBC Gardens World Live, so that's really, really cool.
When is the Spring Fair, actually?
You asked me a question now.
Oh, sorry. Well, if you want to promote it, Ellen, you should
May. Early May, I think.
Oh, when is that? I don't know. I didn't put it in my diary.
Am I Googling it? I don't really know. Anyway.
Yeah, you Google it. I don't know how to.
Oh, I know. Ha ha ha. I posted about it. That will remind me. 3rd to the 5th of May. I'm going to be hosting the Get Growing stage.
Okay. Where's that? Bewley, that one?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then 13th to 16th of June, I'm going to be hosting the Houseplant Hub again at BBC Gardens World Live, which is really good fun. So
it's mega cool.
Yeah. And you've got a hosting gig coming up shortly.
3rd to the 5th. Yeah, Urban Show, which is exciting. I literally just did an interview about it, actually. Yeah, I really look forward to it. Like, I don't think it's going to be so obvious of just, houseplants, la la la, but it's going to be kind of like lots of really interesting kind of urban things. Yeah, really nice.
I mean, it's the first time they've ever done it, isn't it? So it's completely new.
Yeah, I know.
It's exciting, isn't it?
I know, definitely. So that's cool.
Bringing a bit of urban gardening into the RHS scene.
Oh my God, but I got one thing before, because this is April, isn't it? And the week before, or the couple of weeks before, I'm on this Dutch cruise, and I'm speaking I'm like a speaker on a Dutch cruise, like for 4 days through the rivers. I wonder what that's going to be like.
That is epic. That sounds so cool.
I wonder how big the boat is, because I like, if it's a small boat, I might vomit.
Do you get seasick?
Only in things very small. So I think it probably will be all right. But yeah.
I mean, if it's a cruise, it can't be small, can it? It can't be.
Yeah. Well, it's through the rivers, so it's not going to be like a big round the world cruise type thing.
No. So it's not going to be like a canal boat.
No, I don't think so. No. So, but I love that. I really like. This would probably scare some people, but I love those things where you just like, when they ask me to do it, I'm like, yeah, all right. I didn't even think about it or ask any details, but you need to do that in life, because that's how you kind of just throw yourself into stuff. And sometimes people like ask too much and like you think too much, and I don't know. I really just go for stuff, and I hardly ever come unstuck. So
hardly ever.
Helen, I'm really good at I'm really good at framing stuff as well. Like even to myself and my own mind, like.
if it turned out that it wasn't like amazing, I would easily frame that to myself that it was like, you know, it was good for experience or practice, or kind of part of it was good. And so I think I do a lot of reframing in my head. Yeah. I'm kind of
everything
realizing that as I'm chatting right now.
It should be a good experience. It's an experience. Like everything I do, even if it doesn't really work out or I haven't enjoyed it, is an experience. You learn from it, don't you? Like just say yes, go do it. If it didn't work out, move on. You know, I just
totally.
You've got to give it a go. I would just recommend putting your seasick pills in your pocket.
Ginger, yeah.
Make sure that you don't take anything drowsy.
I'm really excited about a friend of the podcast is going to feature on this new Alan Titchmarsh show, the Garden Club. I didn't realise it's actually on in the afternoon, which is quite interesting. It's on at 2 p.m. on Mondays, I believe. I'm sure
maybe it's aiming towards a demographic that is able to be at home in the afternoon.
I guess also these days it doesn't really matter when something's on, because if, like, you know, the generation that is not available at 2 p.m. still want to watch it, they're still going to be able to seek it out and watch it. Do you know what I mean? So
you can catch up. And for anyone listening, talking about the plant rescuer, Sarah Gerard-Jones is going to be the houseplant expert, which is awesome.
Ooh, my flips.
She's awesome also. Really awesome. Are we running
so that was cool. Yeah.
Are we running out of topics to talk about?
Well, no, I just because you were saying you needed to go at 3, so I'm like just aware that I don't want to kind of launch into something new, and I also want to heat up some soup.
You're fun.
You're a busy mum, so you know.
Busy mum. Actually, I'm talking about throwing yourself into doing something.
Yeah.
I'm doing a gardening club talk at the Charlotte Gardening Club tomorrow morning.
Oh, cool.
And it's a new talk.
Not built it yet.
I know, it's a new talk I've not done before. So I've it's the day before and I'm now about to write it.
But you know what I said to you yesterday on a WhatsApp message, and I think that should be framed and put on the office wall. It is not... No, what did I say? It was really good, wasn't it? It's not efficient to do things before you need them.
But I agree with you.
Yeah,
because you do.
It's kind of not. Do stuff as it's needed. Otherwise, I think sometimes, like, when you plan stuff ahead of time, like with this talk, for example, you probably like, if you did it 6 weeks ago, you'd probably do it, and then you kind of add to it probably today. And so... why not do it all today? Because likelihood is you forget what you thought of 6 weeks ago. Yeah. So just do it off the cuff. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. I just figure
nobody ever gets anything delivered early from me, but they never get it late.
Exactly that. It's never late, never miss a deadline, but it might just be on the deadline. You know, it won't be early. I completely agree. And I think when you sort of know the topics and what you're going to talk about, I don't have to learn it over and over. I'm confident enough in myself that I can talk, about the subject. Totally. And so really it's putting together a presentation just so you've got some photographs and some little demo things to do, and then just talking around that. Do you know what I mean? So I feel very confident in being able to do it. But I did just laugh to myself. You know, this has been booked for months and months, but why not write it?
Using your time efficiently.
You know, it's efficient. And then straight after that, I'm going to Washington for a few days. Washington, D.C., that is, to go to the orchid show at the US Botanic Garden. Pardon?
Or is that one? Is it next week or something?
Is what next week?
How long's it for?
What, the orchid show?
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's for. I think it's like until April. Maybe.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's nice.
It's about the future of orchids at the US Botanic Garden.
Is it at a Botanic Garden then, or something, or what?
Pardon?
Is it at a Botanic Garden?
It's at the US Botanic Garden, which is in DC.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow.
And sorry, hang on a minute. I'm going to the US Botanic Garden in DC, which has orchid stuff going on there anyway, but the Smithsonian Garden
I've heard of that.
Also has the future of orchids exhibition on there, And last time we went to DC, we done all of like the Capitol building and, all of that kind of stuff. This year, we're not doing that. We're going to go to the Native American History Museum, going to do some of that kind of culture side of things. So as soon as I've done the talk, I have to jump in the car and drive straight to Washington. So,
club meets, like, is it at lunchtime or something then, or what?
The talk is at like 10:30 in the morning.
Oh, really? How funny. It's a cute time of day to do something.
Yeah.
Why don't garden clubs in the UK do that? Because they often worry in the winter about having old people out in the dark and stuff.
Yeah, do it in the day.
Yeah, that'd be ideal to do a talk in the morning on a weekend.
Yeah, and then you have the whole rest of the day.
Although they probably worry that it clashes with QVC shows. That's my fan club.
Okay. Okay, anyway, great speaking to you. I've got another call in 3 minutes, so I'm going now.
I had to remind you, Jesus.
I know.
Honestly. You tart. All right, see you later. Enjoy the podcast. Everyone.
Have a nice afternoon. Bye.
I'm going to plant up this Buxton still water bottle as a terrarium.
Huh? You are going to?
No, Ellen.
Weird. Okay, bye.
You're so cute, honestly.
The tranquil, soothing, natural sound of flowing water. Listening to it has been shown to lower your heart rate and blood pressure and gently relax your whole body. Combining the magical sound of cascading water with the beauty of plants, Hydria Life now enable you to enjoy these same health and well-being benefits at home or in the garden. Get 10% off their rechargeable Hydria fountain at hydrialife.com when you quote code PLANT24 on ordering. That's PLANT24 on ordering.
The music for the Plant-Based podcast is part of the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editor is Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.